Okay, let's see what this video was Swoosh was saying. Deleted it in it or something. Send to leave those people on the island in it, fam. Them weird dudes, man. Creepy. I've seen Joe Rogan talk about it. Man, you guys really believe the sun is 92 million miles away, fam? Damn. Fam, it's calculated. What's the? I'm just posing the question. Oh, okay. I just thought I'll ask it. I'm not talking about flat Earth or anything. Don't worry, boys. I used to war on that your Game of Thrones, fam. Like Dragon Balls. Yo. Contain the mass of 1,000 tons. NASA, man, I don't believe shit coming from NASA, man. They've lied so many times, it's unbelievable. Size of our solar system. Holy crap, look at massive. Johansi, salute. Thank you, fam. You notice, boys, everywhere in life, technology has always advanced. When it comes to TVs, phones, the only technology that happens not to advance was space technology. You notice that, boys? That's the only technology that supposedly was destroyed and never went to prospered in any sense. We lost the technology. We can't get it back. We left through the Van Allen belt in the 60s. 1969 to 1972, but we can't go past it now. Innit? Space technology is the only technology where we can't seem to go any further. While technology outside space has gone through the roof. It's all horseshit, fam. Man, you believe we went to the moon in 1969 to 1972, the Apollo missions. After that, we never ever went past low Earth orbit. We've never sent a human past it. But we only sent them in the 60s and the 70s, fam. And what's the reasoning is because the technology that we once had is now destroyed. So we can't go through it anymore. Man! Man, come on, man. If you went to the moon in the 60s, there should be bases on the moon by now. Don't even tell me that. Man, even NASA's own workers, fam, they said we can't go past the Van Allen belt now. How did we go in the 60s but we can't go in 2012? 2021. Man, it's true, man. And you seen the video of Buzz Aldrin when he speaks to the young girl and he says there to the truth that we didn't go to the moon. Because, you know, in that, you know, your feelings, fam, like what you have inside, it can't come out as a lie in front of kids. There's something about the true, like, innocence of kids where your heart will tell the truth. Then he tried worming it after that, this and that. He goes, it's a question young girls should not be asking. But he knows, fam. It's controlling. Not on this topic, fam. Every other topic, yeah, maybe every now and then. Space, I don't believe for shit that we went to the moon, fam. That was insane though, wasn't it? Without black holes, we wouldn't even be here. Every video when it comes to outer space, man, I just don't know what to believe, man. I don't. No, man, it's like, fam, the first ever time they tested to go send man to the moon, the first ever time, 200 so-called 250,000 miles there, 250,000 miles back, they succeeded. The first ever time they tried sending a man to the moon. I mean, well, other than the other guy that they killed, fam. What was his name again, man? Gus Grissom, fam. He was murdered. His own family even say it, fam. Because he wasn't a puppet to agree that, to fake the mission. You know what I mean? Like, his own wife says he was murdered, fam. But yeah, boys, 12 o'clock, man. Yo, thank you, Ryan. If that was not a problem from 1969 to 1972, why is it a problem now? Where's that dude, man? So, Van Allen Belt. Watch what he says, the dude with the glasses, man. Where is he, man? Obviously, they're not gonna have this up here because they don't want people finding out the moon was all bullshit, man, the mission, fam. So they're not gonna have it. They're gonna have to go on certain channels, the people that, you know, don't believe in it. Like I said, man, if we went to the moon from 1969 to 1972, fam, trust me, right now, there'd be cameras on the moon and shit, fam. Technology has gone further in every other aspect in life, man. It has. Man, you know, the computing technology we had that sent, you know, man to the moon, fam. It was like a phone, yo. You know what I mean? Now technology has gone so much further over than space technology. Like, you know, fam, you can't make that up. You can't. It's a lie. Man never landed on the moon, fam. It's all horseshit. Man, look at these dudes' body language, man. Wait. Look at this body language and you tell me these guys landed on the moon, fam.
From the reports that you have all heard from those previous Saturn V flights. And
you know, honestly, you have to feel sorry for these guys. God knows what kind of contracts they must have had in it. With any wrong slip of a tongue, anything that shows that you didn't go.
The previous flights served us well.
God knows what
for this flight.
The lies aren't in dialogue, the truth in
subsequent
visuals.
phases.
I've seen happier people going to the work on Monday morning. It's true, man. I left bare comments, man. God knows which one it was.
To skip directly to the translunar coast phase.
As an expert, only two possibilities I was watching. We didn't go to the moon. We went and saw something we shouldn't have. I believe the first one.
Remind
They are all seemingly
ourselves
oddly uncomfortable,
of the
painful to watch.
chain of events.
Man,
that-
think about it,
long
man.
chain-
Man, you know when you like when your team wins a football game or something, you're over the moon, fam. You're on cloud nine. Now imagine people that stepped foot on other than Earth. Man, you reckon your body language is gonna be that of a flipping
with the
like a funeral, fam?
undockings.
I watched all of this countless times.
The
My most important job here was to make sure that all his landing gear were down and properly locked.
They know
prior
they're
to his
lying,
descent
but the
and
sad
touchdown.
thing is you gotta feel sorry for him.
This is his yaw maneuver, and the white dots you see are the
You got to, man.
Behind us. You see,
And you notice one of them changed their stories, fam. Well, what does the other guy say? What's his name? Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and the other dude, Collins. What did he say when that question asked to him here? Did you see stars? And what does he say? No, we see no stars, fam. And what does he say years after, like in the 80s, 90s when he had the interview? Oh, we seen countless stars. So what was it? Did you see stars or did you not see stars? Man, they go back on themselves so many times, man, in the wording.
most of the craters have rounded edges. However, there is a variation in the age of these, as we can tell by the sharpness of the edge of the crater. The general
Look at that.
color
Look at
is
his face,
plain
man.
looking down sun.
Does that look like a man that went to the moon, fam?
This blended as we look more cross-sun to a
Gaze is low.
more sharper, well-defined features and more of a gray color.
Man, God knows the pain that must be in though.
After
You gotta feel sorry for him, man. You do.
we went through various sequences to prepare us for immediate
Bless him
abort
though, fam. I
or
guess you
liftoff.
can't,
Mobility on the surface
in a
was
sense,
in
like
quite the same degree of control
go against what the government says,
of
man.
your stability as you moved along. We found we had to anticipate what was used to record the various messages that were sent up to us, the whole host of numbers for the particular maneuvers that were coming up that we would copy.
Yeah,
down.
of
We'd
course.
lock
They had no choice but to go ahead with it. You know, Gus Grissom, fam. He was meant to be the first man on the moon, if you guys know about it. But what did he stick on his car? I mean, on the rocket. And he basically insulted, and him and two other people went inside the rocket to do like a test, and boom, the rocket goes on fire, and all three of them turned to dust, fam. They all died. Then later on, his wife and his son, now which his son is a lot older, saying they were killed because he was questioning that. He was saying that if we struggle to leave low Earth orbit, how are we going to go to the moon? He said something on them lines, and that's it. They killed him. They knew he wouldn't agree to lie, fake the mission. Man, trust me, man. Look my way. But you're not gonna see Ian, because obviously he's the one that was murdered, fam. They killed him, yo. Fucked up, man. And that cryptic Neil Armstrong interview he gave, remember? Not dumb, man. You could see right through it. There are pilots who believe in flat Earth, of course. I mean, like, I'm not been talking about flat Earth here because every time we talk about moon missions, apparently the topic always has to go to flat Earth. It's weird. I'm not saying moon mission was fake, man. Yo, man, trust me, man. They admit themselves. Man, imagine going somewhere. It's like this, fam. The first man to sail sea around like the world. The first man to ever fly a plane, like from north, he went to south. Imagine it takes 50 years later and we still can't go north to south. You're going to hold on. Something's not right, yeah? You know what I mean? How can, like, we do it 50 years ago, but we can't do it 50 years later? You automatically gonna believe it wasn't true. We went to the moon from 1969 to 1972, but we can't go in now. And NASA own spokesmen say we can't go because we can't leave the Van Allen belt. But we happened to go with less technology in 1969. And the first ever time we went to the moon, we actually went to the moon, which is like 250,000 miles away. You know, first ever mission, we happened to go. Like, yo, it ain't possible. It's not, man. You know what? You know, best. Wait, hold on. This is all you need.
The following content is provided.
Wait, no, it's not this. They deleted these videos, man. Where is it?
The following content is provided.
There. No. It wasn't this.
Jump for time has been about 2 by over. Okay, how do you read me now? Right, you're 5 by now.
What's that dude's name again, man? Funny thing, what's that dude's name? That chubby dude, man. What was his name, man? I swear down, man. I find. There's nothing to do with this. It's a fully fledged documentary, fam, and how fake the mission was. What? Hold on, man. Does anyone know that dude's name, man? That dude that pulls out the Bible thing, man, and none of them touch it. On his channel, he's gonna have it. No, Primer, this is 110% fake, man. I don't know about any other government issue. Yo, this is bullshit. You can't tell me we went from 1969 to 1972 and we never been now. And I said, man, what else proof do you need? They themselves said they can't do it now. It's like, you know, some people, I feel like, no matter what evidence comes to the face, they can't accept it. You know why? Because it feels like if we deny the moon mission that it happened, like we're disgracing our humanity in a sense. Like it's a humanity achievement, so we can't deny it. Fam, it was a lie. It wasn't true. Man, how can you tell me technology has not advanced in that aspect, but in every other aspect it has? Look at their body language, man. Like we said, my body language, you can't lie, fam. You can't do it. And their body language, 110% was like scared, man. Like they were going to a funeral, fam. What was his name, man? Let me write Neil Armstrong Bible, come up. Wow, man. So much things have been changed, like on YouTube from the last time I've seen it, man. About the moon missions. Oh, is this channel deleted? It is, isn't it? What was his name, man? But we never landed on the moon, scientist. Tell me, why haven't we landed on it if we landed from last time 1972? Why haven't we landed on it now? I don't even tell me, because there's nothing there. Why haven't we went back? Why our own NASA workers are saying we can't go? Why are they saying we can't go, but we can't go in the 70s? And you know, this is what triggers me the most, fam. You know, people say over 80,000 people worked on the Apollo missions. So how can 80,000 people lie? Fam, like 79,000 of them never knew. They only knew their respected roles. Let that be fixing a rocket, fixing the helmet, fixing the gloves. Man, only the toppest of the elites knew it was a lie, fam. Everyone else thought it was real. What they seen on the screen was real. It wasn't real, fam. That's what people say. How can everyone agree that they, like, keep it hidden? No one knew. Only a handful on top knew. I remember speaking to my teacher about it in media, fam. He was like, no, like, how can they all keep a lie together? I go, fam, not all of them knew. What is my man's name, man? Please tell me. Wow. They really deleted his channel? No dailies. Hold on. I'm gonna find the documentary from. If I'm not mistaken, it should be his first video. There we go. This is it. Oh, don't say the talk in Spanish.
En las oscuras e intocables grietas.
Bam, man, in English. Oh, thank you.
Countrymen, and finally nations at large.
This is the ultimate proof that the whole thing. Trust me, this is the ultimate
somewhere
proof.
Deeper, within the very character of the human condition, in the dark, untouchable crevices of the human heart. It is said that the first iniquity of free will began even before the maiden pilgrimage from the embryo, preceding the very creation of the earth itself, in the forelife of souls in the heavenly realms. The dawn of warfare, some believe...
Man, just
was
listen, man. If
initiated
anyone
by
with
a
an
fallen
open
angel
mind listens
whose
to this,
trespass against
would...
God
But you're
was
never gonna
crime.
see shit like this on YouTube, man. They're so
In
hidden
ancient
behind things.
Babylonia, in an age so long ago that the exact millennium remains in question, the Tower of Babel began construction. It was to be the single greatest achievement of the human race. A tower so tall that its summit would reach the heavens, and by it prove to the world that their race was superior. It would be God's irony.
Watch,
that it
man.
would
In
never
2
be
seconds,
finished.
they go in on it,
Time
man.
passed,
Obviously, they're
nations
talking now
fell,
about
a
flipping
machine age
human
emerged,
achievements.
and once
Obviously,
again,
the biggest so-called
ingenuity of the
achievement was
species
Moon
which
Mission.
held dominion over all others, unveiled what was at the time the most monumental accomplishment ever imagined. The largest machine yet constructed. An automation so mammoth and so revered, even before its first demonstration, that its only befitting name was Titanic. On April 10th, 1912, it set sail. It was boasted to
I
be
do metal,
the
but
ship
one
that
sec.
God himself could not sink.
I
It
wanna
would
see
be
this.
God's irony that the very element that was meant to keep it afloat would cause it to sink. Water, frozen water, in the form of an iceberg. Not even
You know,
one
there's
voyage
one thing
did it complete.
that the unedited footage that
And then the next
NASA
age
show
embarked into the annals of human history.
just destroys it
Perhaps the last
fully.
age.
It's
The
evidence.
space age.
But people are too like
Competition for victor was
arrogant to
unparalleled.
see it like that.
Powerful nations spent
Watch, man, the
billions
man
in
goes in on it.
rivalry to outdo the other. The Soviet Union launched the first orbiting satellite, the first animal, the first man. They had logged 500% more hours in space than the United States. And in June of 1969, they launched an unmanned probe to the moon to retrieve the first soil sample from another world, just 1 month before Apollo 11. That's how close the race was. Had their unmanned probe not crash-landed into the lunar surface, the first moon rock brought back to Earth would have been by the Soviet Union. Richard Nixon, president at the time, had this to say about the latest work of the human hand. It is the greatest week since creation, the greatest event since the laying of the foundation of the seas, since the origin of the universe itself, since the design and formation of the delicate human eye through which all these things are perceived, was a flying machine with its 2 passengers, orbit, a telescope with a lens that focused. And yet 2 decades earlier, a mission 100 times more complicated worked on its first occasion. With close scrutiny of the motives of the zealous Nixon administration, a critical examination of the entirely government-controlled press coverage, and newly discovered footage
The
of the crew
ultimate
of
proof.
Apollo 11 staging part of their mission, we wish to detail what may come to be the greatest government conspiracy of all time.
That one video that they show, fam, it destroys
A funny
it.
thing happened on the way to the moon.
What would they see as proof? Look, continue watching, fam. Continue watching. Continue watching, fam.
In my rocket ship, we'll have a lovely afternoon. Kiss the world goodbye, and away we'll fly. Destination moon. We'll travel fast as a light till we're out of sight. The earth will be like a toy balloon.
Went to the moon in the 70s and we can't go flipping good 50 years after. Man, that alone is enough, man, to make people contemplate, man, but people don't understand.
We'll go up, 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 up.
Man, you know, just the post-conference itself is evidence. Body language, man, you can see in the face of someone's lying, fam.
I'll be out of this world with you. So away we'll
But people can't admit it because it's a humanity achievement. You know what I mean, fam? They feel bad saying it, but a lie is a lie, man, no matter who says it.
A destination moon.
Why haven't we went back? Why haven't we went back?
We'll go up, up.
I don't know, you're right, but fam, hold on.
In my Jetmobile.
I'm convinced that in the space field, the Russians are ahead of us, particularly in large weightlifting capability, and that at the moment the problem is not so much to catch up, but first build up the working speed that they have already demonstrated. After we are running as fast as they do, there's still a considerable gap to close, and only the future will tell whether we'll manage to close that gap.
We cannot and will not ever get into this race as we should, so long as all of our objectives are short-term objectives. We've got to have no finite end to our objectives. The end of our objectives should be as far as we can see at any given time. But right now, we need a 10 to 12-year program that has as its ultimate goal the manned domination of space. And if we don't, we're going to be in trouble.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal
That's a
before
good
this
one.
decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the earth.
We must assure our preeminence in the peaceful exploration of outer space, focusing on an expedition to the moon in this decade.
T-minus 60 seconds and counting. We passed T-minus 60. 55 seconds and counting. Neil Armstrong reported back when he received the good wishes. Thank you very much. We know
It's funny how people say all 80,000 people knew. No, they didn't.
40 seconds away from the Apollo 11 liftoff. All the second stage tanks now pressurized. 35 seconds and counting. We are still go with Apollo 11. 30 seconds and counting. Astronauts report it feels good.
And obviously they couldn't kill Grissom alone, so then it would look suspicious. They killed two people alongside with him.
T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence start. 6.
First time sending a man to the moon. Like 250,000 miles away. First ever time you happen to succeed. Man, what horse shit. Man, you know, in the training methods, they couldn't get it to fly, you know, low Earth orbit. They couldn't get it to fly. It wasn't stable. But it happened when you first go, it went perfectly. I gotta go here, Nova. Man, I want you guys to see it. It's quite long, but trust me, they explain
the
it.
Van Allen radiation belt.
They explain it fully, man. I should have skipped it.
Unbeknownst to the citizenry, high above the Earth, beginning at an altitude of 1,000 miles and extending an additional 25,000 miles, lay lethal bands of radiation called the Van Allen radiation
We never
belts.
ever went past this. You know, this part here, the only time we ever went past it was in the 60s, fam, and not until 1972. After that, in the 80s, 90s, 20,000, look where we are now. We never ever went past this. Why can't we only go past then, but not now?
Every space mission in history with humans on board, from both the United States and Soviet Union, from the first in 1961 to the present, has been well below this deadly radiation field. Mercury, Gemini, Soyuz, Skylab, the Space Shuttle, all maintained altitudes well below 1,000 miles. All except Apollo.
Look at that.
The more
what are the chances, right? Every space mission to ever exist on planet Earth has been under that 1,000 mile radius, other than the Apollo missions. Come on, man. Man, it don't even take a genius to figure it out it was fake. Every space mission on Earth has been under 1,000 miles, fam. You know, we never left low Earth orbit, other than them missions. Oh, whatever, man. Sometimes I can't fathom it that people still believe it was real.
Experienced Soviets spent 100 hours in space for every 20 hours of the US.
They can't. Skeleton, NASA employees themselves. I'll show videos of it. They said we can't do it. They go the technology we had. We don't have it anymore. They said they want to, but they can't. It's not like they don't want to. They want to, but they can't.
Journey through this radiation field necessary to reach the moon and return, solid lead shielding between the astronauts and the exposure outside would be required. The mammoth Saturn V rocket used by Apollo was already 35 stories tall and weighed as much as a battleship. To add additional tonnage in the form of a lead barrier completely surrounding the crew members would have made it impossible for the vehicle to get off the ground. That is why the Soviets, though more advanced, only sent an unmanned probe to the moon. The Apollo spacecraft's narrowest shielding was less than 1/8 of an inch of light aluminum. In 1998, the Space Shuttle flew to an altitude of 350 miles, one of its highest altitudes ever, hundreds of miles below the beginning of a field of radiation that was so severe that the astronauts inside of their shielded spacecraft and inside of their shielded spacesuits saw flashes of light with their eyes shut that they described as shooting stars.
Look at that.
Due to radiation penetrating first the shuttle's shielding, then their spacesuit shielding, then their skulls, and finally the retinas of
They
their
would have
closed
died
eyes.
if they went through it.
As a result, CNN issued the following report noting NASA's unpredicted surprise. The radiation belt surrounding Earth may be more dangerous for spacewalking astronauts than previously believed. Scientists say the phenomena known as the Van Allen belts can spawn killer electrons when the Earth's magnetic field changes. These electrons that are being studied could have an important effect, not only on satellites, which has happened in the past, but could also affect the astronauts by creating large doses of radiation that could influence their health.
Human beings have never ever went past
various
this.
materials,
Never.
including spacesuits, and can pass through, in fact, the walls of the space station, and can create high charges deep inside of these objects. President Kennedy, a man of political, not scientific background, set the irrevocable goal of landing a man on the moon by the end of the 1960s, just days after America's first astronaut had spent a mere 16 minutes in space, not even achieving a single orbit around the Earth.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
We take an additional risk by making it in full view of the world. But as shown by the feat of astronaut Shepard, this very risk
scientists,
enhances our
please,
stature
you know in your heart
when we are successful.
The technology necessary to launch the massive Saturn V rocket and an intercontinental ballistic missile is 95% similar.
No man has left low Earth orbit. No man, no matter how much they...
In 1957, there was grave concern that they had mastered space ahead of the United States and might use this advantage to launch a first nuclear strike from an orbit high above North America. When they also put the first animal in space, then the first man in space, then achieved the first spacewalk, the first crew of 3, and the first ever of 2 simultaneously orbiting spacecrafts, concern turned to fear and then horror as America watched their communist enemy achieve all these firsts with no hope in sight of ever catching up.
President, a member of Congress said today that he was tired of seeing the United States second to Russia in the space field. I suppose he speaks for a lot of others.
You know what NASA stands for, fam? Never a straight answer.
Catch up with Russia and perhaps surpass Russia in this field.
However tired anybody may be, and no one is more tired than I am, it is a fact that it's going to take some time, and I think we have to recognize it. They secured these large boosters, which have led to their being first in Sputnik and led to their first putting their man in space. We are, I hope, going to be able to carry out our efforts with due regard to the problem of the life of the man involved this year. But we are behind.
We are behind, but you're not going to be behind.
If it was impossible to better the Soviets in the space race, which was really a race of technological armaments, what could be done? How could America offset the threat of superior weaponry? Throughout the history of rivalry and war, astute generals of lesser armies than their counterparts have used deceit and misinformation as a method to achieve victory. In World War II, for example, columns of inflatable tanks were placed at locations afar from Normandy to draw German forces away from the real location of invasion. The Star Wars missile defense program rigged tests to make it seem more advanced than it really was. That's the conclusion of the General Accounting Office. The aim was to fool the Soviet Union about US military readiness during the Cold War. Certainly, it was not possible to fool just the Soviets about US strategic capability in the 1960s, while somehow informing 200 million Americans of the truth secretly. In order for them to believe the United States had the capability to go to the moon, everyone would have to believe it. Furthermore, the pride of a nation was at stake, and the goal of a martyr, not to mention the growing unrest domestically of a government throwing tens of thousands of lives away in a foreign war riddled with contradiction and ambiguity. In addition, the Apollo program had already spent billions of dollars. If it failed to achieve its goal with such an investment, it would indeed be a large and bitter pill for the taxpayers to swallow. The cost of the program, whose sole goal was to be the first to plant a flag.
She's obviously sleeping and she hears, what the fuck are you watching?
If adjusted for inflation to the 21st century, was $135 billion. With a profit margin of just 7%, this would be equal to over $9 billion profit going to the privileged contractors chosen by their
friends. That's what you know, like moon missions.
If the machinery
and flipping religion, it's just the same thing.
Orbit, as other earlier missions had already done, then the completion and functionality
and
of
some
the
things
other
are better not getting into.
Would not have been as
but farmer swoosh us past that space video. I couldn't help but talk what's in my mind, man.
$135 billion could feed 2 million people for their entire lives. It could also buy 2 million two-bedroom houses. Yet how
give me a
could such
4-bedroom house, yo.
be kept secret, and for such a long time? To the latter, one needs only to remember that an unsolved riddle 6 years older, the assassination of President Kennedy, still daunts the minds of the vast majority of Americans. as apparent of a conspiracy as his assassin being assassinated himself, the truth of the matter has still escaped history.
I made her watch this before, innit? Like when we first got married and shit. I'm not marrying someone that believing on the we landed the moon and shit. She didn't care. After she watched it, she goes, "I never learned nothing." She goes, "I don't really care if we did or didn't." I was laughing.
During the early to mid 1940s, involved 129,500 people over a 3-year period. Yet the secret.
She must be
did
thinking,
not
"What are
get
you
out.
doing?"
A quarter century later, the art and technology of espionage inevitably.
Man, I don't know what exact second it is, fam.
Dramatically the number of players in the know of a large clandestine operation.
Hold on.
For who would realize that the unthinkable was not only possible, but absolutely true?
Look how fake that is, man.
And what of the photographs? What do they tell us? On 3 separate occasions, our office asked NASA's Public Relations Department for every single picture of an astronaut on the surface of the moon, just during the maiden voyage of Apollo 11. Many duplicates were sent. In all, fewer than 20 pictures were found, including first-hand investigation on site at the agency's vaulted archives. Quite surprising, considering the historical significance of the event.
You know the moon missions are fake, fam.
The same ones circulated year after year on anniversary.
That's gonna be funny after I take this off.
It is estimated that in just the first 60 minutes on the moon, motivated by the tenuous nature of the circumstances, many more exposures could have been expediently taken. Also surprising is the scarcity of photographs of the mission's chief pioneer, Neil Armstrong. The greatest achievement in human history, and of the man whose first step echoed around the world, dawning a new age of scientific enlightenment, there is only one full-body picture of him on the moon, besides this ghostly reflection. This one, taken by an automatic camera mounted on the side of the lunar module. Perhaps he feared liability, should the whole conundrum later become unraveled. Perhaps he has forgotten that he attested to the authenticity of the event with his signature on this plaque engraved by the federal government. In fact, in the more than 30 years since the event, aside from NASA's initial press conference and the occasional brief anniversary remarks where few questions were permitted, he has never given one on-camera interview to anyone.
Because he knows he hates lying. He can't lie, he's a man of religion, fam.
From an analytical standpoint, photographic anomalies have to be sought out with an understanding of lighting and shadows. The most straightforward is simple. When objects are lit solely by the sun, as all the scenes on the moon were said to be, after all, lighting equipment was not only impractical, it was unnecessary in bright sunlight.
Fam, mark my word, man, if I landed on the moon, fam, I'll interview every single person I can get. You're the first man to step foot on the moon and you're telling me you're only going to give one interview. That's horseshit, because he knows he can't lie. He hates lying. Obviously a man of religion, fam. Like, obviously, man, there's certain monotheistic religions, lyings are the worst of sins, fam. He knows what's up. He doesn't like doing it. You know it, man. His body language speaks volumes.
Then all shadows, regardless of the landscape, will run parallel with one another and never intersect.
How many interviews has he given, man? A handful? Man, Shanks have come more times than Marineford. I mean, in One Piece, Dan flipping, he has done interviews, yo.
As shown by this example. In these seldom seen photographs, obtained from a rarely used auxiliary NASA archival site, it is clear
more
that
than one light source
with artificial light. These shadows, which are cast at different angles, are evidence that a second light source is being used.
The only light source was what? The sun? But they can't be.
In addition, the sun would not cause an isolated hotspot like this. Only an artificial light would. Again, intersecting shadows and another hotspot. And again. And again.
Look at that! That's evidence right there!
It is simply impossible for this picture to have been taken with sunlight on the moon. Here, the shadows are shown to be as black as pitch. And yet here, completely in a...
Look how fake this is. Man's completely embedded in the flipping shadow, but look at his back. Clearly lighting up to see that flag, fam. Oh, you can't make this up, man.
The astronaut is lit up like a Christmas tree.
Exactly, like a Christmas tree, and is deeply in shadow.
How can this be? Or this? on the shadow side of the lunar module. In this
Oh yeah, they just happened to leave a sea rock. You know NASA's official photos. There's a sea on here. Later on, there's no sea. Obviously, that to remove it.
Of an Apollo photograph.
It's fake.
A rock, very likely a papier-mâché prop because of the crease here, is categorized with the letter C. In later releases of the same picture, the letter is gone.
Of course.
Probably airbrushed out. Here, a crosshair, which was burned directly into the image from the film plate, and thus should always appear on top of the objects in the photograph, appears behind the object in this scene, clearly revealing a composite of
Come on, fam, look at that. These are official NASA photos we're talking about here, fam. Look at that.
two pictures into one. Someone apparently forgot to create a burn crater underneath the lunar module's 10,000-pound thrust engine.
Look at that.
Despite
there should be a flipping hole right there.
During ground tests, there was a real concern for the vehicle falling into the hole the engine created as it descended. Here is a depiction based on the latest specifications and scientific data. In these enlargements, it looks as though the lunar module was simply placed there. Not even one speck of moon dust on the landing pod.
Look at that.
As a result, all
that should be dusty as flip. You know the frost that flippy shoots off.
Subsequent flights had to have the same discrepancy, which was explained away by the effect of no atmosphere. And what about stars? On the moon with no atmosphere.
You know why they never showed stars in the background? Because they know people would lock on instantly it's fake. Because obviously of how the stars are flipping lined. You know what I mean?
It's been quite a sight to behold.
They couldn't do it.
Yet there is seldom any mention of them, if ever, by any of the astronauts on any of the missions. Undoubtedly, creating a mural with all the constellations properly placed in the sky would have been virtually impossible to create accurately, much less realistically. A competent amateur astronomer would have been able to call attention to the slightest error in measurement.
They would have locked on instantly.
The answer? Not to talk about the stars. Ever. In their post-flight press conference,
look at this, man. Look at their body language.
To which Neil Armstrong responded with an absence of memory.
When you looked up at the sky, could you actually see the stars and the solar corona in spite of the glare?
We were never able to see stars from the lunar surface or
Look
on
at
the
his
daylight
face.
side of the moon by eye without looking through the optics. I don't recall.
Look at the nervousness playing with whatever, the pencil or whatever. That's a sign of, remember when you watch that flipping YouTube channel we got, where the man could tell body language, fam. When a man's like, just by his sitting, man, you could make it out, man.
Time that we were photographing the solar corona.
There, look at this. Look at the way he whispers to him. Here,
what
look.
Stars we could see.
I don't remember seeing any.
Look at this.
Years later, though, Michael Collins would remember seeing the elusive stars and wrote about them in Expeditions to the Moon. It seems his memory improved.
His memory came back when he got older. When you're older, your memory gets worse.
Why don't stars appear in any of the photographs? Simply because the proper, mostly closed exposure setting for the camera's iris, set that way to compensate for the bright sunlight on the moon's surface, completely diminished the faintness of relatively distant specks.
That's what I'm saying, Ryan! Fam, you landed on the moon. You come back to Earth. How are you gonna look? You're gonna feel like you landed on Raftel, fam? Like, yo, man found a one piece, yo, ask me anything you want. Man, these guys are like, you know, yeah, I don't remember, Like that, fam. Yo, you can't lie at body language, fam. You can't. There's no one clever enough to, like, lie in their body language. The body language has proved it, man. Man, I don't get it. What proof do people need?
Of diminutive light. This answer is true. It does not, however, explain why they never took any pictures of the stars by themselves, with an exposure setting perfect for them.
I swear to God, you know when a woman goes to a bathroom, a woman takes more photos than these guys did on the Apollo mission. Man, you did a handful of photos. But yet, like, fam, like, a woman takes like 30, 40 photos, fam, every time they go to the toilet, yo. These men left Earth and they only done a handful of photos.
They took 3 automobiles to the moon. They never took a photographic telescope. Had they done so...
Yeah. Oh, dudes, come, let's go space tomorrow. Yo, Issa, you asked me, you're gonna bring a telescope with you. Telescope? Why would I want a telescope when you're going to the moon? Bam! Like, why would you not take a telescope? Why would you not take a telescope? Like...
They would have been able to see farther into the universe than had ever before been realized. If they had taken a telescope and were not actually on the moon, they would have had to concoct undiscovered galaxies that might one day prove to be non-existent.
Now, John, this topic just pisses me off, man. Like, I don't get it. What proof do people need?
In 21st century currency, nearly $60 million each. Though they had fewer parts than a Jeep.
People just can't admit it. They can't do it.
Going? Then there's the flag, blowing in the wind, at least twice, on the atmosphereless moon. We can only guess that most of the missions were staged inside.
Exactly.
For fear of possible aerial or satellite reconnaissance from an unfriendly nation. The backpacks, designed for 1/6 gravity, must have had the cooling systems removed to allow for movement without falling over. With very near and hot studio lighting, that left one hot astronaut inside. Assuming that it was the astronauts inside, after all, their faces were always covered. The necessary mammoth amounts of air conditioning were probably responsible.
But you gotta feel sorry for these three. I'm not saying anything bad about them.
The editor cuts to a still shot.
Man, God knows, man, if they spoke up, man, their families would have been in danger.
Here it is unchecked. This rare clip, attained decades ago, was never re-released with the inevitable increase in experience and scrutiny.
Someone put the fan on?
1/6 gravity, a bouncy, floaty feel to the astronauts' movements would be similarly achieved with relative simplicity. Slow motion. You are viewing the scenes as they aired more than 30 years ago. Now let's look at them with the speed doubled.
There.
It becomes discernible that they are, in fact, in Earth's gravity, and are no more leaving the ground than they would on Earth. It is clear from these rarely seen color television pictures that the crew of Apollo 11 brought a high-resolution color video camera with them on their mission, yet the only pictures broadcast live from the moon's surface were these from a low-definition black and white camera. In fact,
you had to be black and white because they couldn't make it any more clear. People would lock on.
Images, second generation, off of a projection TV of the technology of 30 years ago, and were not even allowed to take a direct feed, which further degraded the quality and clarity of the images. Perhaps this was precisely what NASA and the federal government had in mind. After all, it was a first, regardless of where they were. Better to open up their debut mission with fuzzy pictures and numerous blackouts, rather than show too much revealing detail of a false scene that was yet unproven. And finally, the element that seals their fate.
This is it.
Of all the footage of Apollo 11 requested from NASA over a 5-year period, one gem was discovered just before the completion of this documentary. An old reel received by mistake. It contains the raw or unedited footage of the crew of Apollo 11, Michael Collins, Edwin Aldrin Jr., and Neil Armstrong, staging part of their mission for nearly an hour in living color, with exceptionally clear behind-the-scenes audio of conversations discussing the techniques used to achieve a disingenuous picture.
Okay, apparently they're 125,000 miles away here, apparently halfway to the moon.
Depicting the Earth at a distance, in order to falsely demonstrate their far journey from it, and their ability to survive passing through the Van Allen radiation belts. It cannot be misconstrued that this staging was done for some other reason prior to the mission, for the reel itself is slated and dated July 18th, 19th, and 20th, 1969, the very days of the mission when they were said to be approaching and achieving lunar orbit. Furthermore, it is apparent they are in genuine zero gravity aboard the actual spacecraft, necessary to convince the mass media of their authenticity, just not any further than Earth orbit, as you will see. In this never-before-seen or heard footage, not only is the radio conversation between the astronauts and Houston Control audible, there is a
swoosher. If there's one person out of the 112 watching this that even has a doubt, like thinking, hold on, man, maybe this, man, I feel like I've done my job. I'm going to give a shit, fam.
Place between the crew and a third confidential party, prompting the astronauts with what to say, when to speak, and how to effectively manipulate the camera to achieve the desired misleading effect. NASA claims that the Houston transmissions were the only ones taking place with the astronauts. Listen now as Houston...
Only two sources are in contact with each other. Listen to who says talk. Is it because they know it? Because they're not responding, watch it.
Initiates a conversation with the crew, only to find them too preoccupied with the behind-the-scenes trickery to respond. Moments pass, and the oversight is picked up on by the clandestine third party, who quickly prompts them with talk. Immediately, Neil Armstrong speaks.
Hello, Apollo 11. Houston, Goldstone says that the TV looks great. Over.
No reply.
Okay, Roger. We're mapping in on Earth.
You can't make this up, man.
Again, the illusion they are attempting to create is the Earth at a distance to demonstrate their far journey from it and their ability to survive passing through the Van Allen radiation belts. Understand, too, that only about 20 seconds of this raw footage was ever broadcast to the public, and these conversations discussing their deception were believed to be private. Until now. Here they discuss that these television transmissions were in fact not broadcast live as everyone believed. They were first screened and edited for playback later.
Roger, Neil, we just wanted a narrative such that we can, when we get to playback, we can sort of correlate what we're seeing. Thank you very much.
What deceiving
Here they
liars.
discuss the fact that they have turned out the lights and have blocked out sunlight from entering the spacecraft through the other windows, as to not cause any reflected light to fall onto the spacecraft's wall in the foreground.
Okay, very good. Well, we shut out the sun coming in some of the other windows into the spacecraft, so it's looking through the number one window under it, any reflected light.
The reason this was done is so that the truth of the matter would not be revealed. It is this. Though the federal government would have you believe that this is a view of Earth from a distance out of the spacecraft's window as it nears the moon, it is not. What they have ingeniously done is placed the camera at the back of the spacecraft and centered the lens on a circular window in the foreground, outside of which it is completely filled with the Earth in low orbit. The circumference of the window then appears to be the diameter of the Earth at a distance, with the darkened walls of the spacecraft appearing to be the blackness of space around it. That is why they wanted the interior dark and blocked out the sun from entering through the other windows. Here you can see the extruded window, probably 2 inches thick at the bottom. This is because the Earth's shine is coming in at a downward angle. It also causes the Earth to appear to be an irregularly shaped circle, for you are seeing the outside of the window at the bottom and the inside of the window at the top, which together form 2 different sized halves of a circle. Subsequently, this take was never used.
I wonder why.
As they perfected the shot, a crescent-shaped piece of black material was inset slightly into the window to create the illusion of the Earth's terminator line dividing night and day. It is uncannily convincing. During this segment, intended to be edited and played back later for the worldwide television audience, dated July 18, 1969, Neil Armstrong condemns himself as he states that he is 130,000 miles out, or halfway to the moon, as the NASA flight log also states on this date, when he is in reality in low Earth orbit of a few hundred miles.
Roger, Houston, Apollo 11. Calling in from about 130,000 miles out.
Here, during another segment, also intended to air after review, Neil Armstrong falsely explains to the viewers how the shot is attained by putting the camera's lens to the window's glass, as it would have to be if they were the claimed distance away from the Earth.
we only have one window that has a view of the Earth, and it's filled up with the TV camera.
If the window was completely filled up with a TV camera,
how would the arm get through?
Then an astronaut's arm would not be able to get between
Impossible,
the camera and the
unless
window,
the arm's out the
as
window.
it obviously does here in this outtake.
South America becomes invisible.
Man!
Beyond the Terminator or...
This is embarrassing!
You can also notice how the astronaut operating the camera reacted to the mistake by attempting to pan away from it.
Of course. Look, he quickly locked on.
See white bands of major cloud formations across the Earth.
This is a segment that they believed wasn't even being recorded, much less suitable for broadcast, for the lens was being zoomed out and the scene was being changed to that of an interior of the astronauts at work, and apparently the stop button popped back up on the recorder without notice. Here is the diffused work light that they used to see camera controls, but not throw light onto the spacecraft's wall. Here they remove part of the crescent insert. Finally, the iris is opened up and you can see the real location of the camera and the very bright and near Earth out the window.
Wow, man. Couldn't
Here
get
is the
bigger
slate for the
bunch of
19th
flip.
of July. And the same shot of trickery on the 19th of July. And then the 20th. And the same misleading shot on the 20th. Later that evening, they were said to be walking on the moon. How can this be when they were in Earth orbit only 9 hours earlier?
Debunked, Kudo, by who? Mythbusters and all them other bullcrap YouTube channels that tried like blasting that this is fake. No, man.
And the moon
them are
is
horse
some
shit,
3
man.
days' journey away. Furthermore, if they genuinely went to the moon, why would they be faking any part of it?
Of course!
Why this trickery with the window? By faking being halfway to the moon, it becomes
not real,
apparent
man.
that they did
They're all
so
fake,
because
man.
they could not even go halfway.
You will never find YouTube
thus
channels that
confirms
prove the
that
Earth,
stumbling block to their
the moon
success
landing is
was the
fake,
lethal
that appear
radiation
first.
of the Van Allen radiation belts. Since the same equipment was used on the subsequent missions in the 40 months that followed, none of them could have gone to the moon. They only increased their proficiency at staging them. When some TV viewers of the second manned mission to the moon telephoned the networks complaining that reruns of I Love Lucy were being interrupted, it became clear that for the taxpayers, once was enough. But it wasn't enough for the government and contractors. Billions of dollars of pure profit went with each return. How coincidental that the following mission would have the element of life and death jeopardy. Apollo 13. Now the public would take going to the moon more seriously and be reconnected with the drama. We now realize that perhaps the reason Neil Armstrong
Look at that face, man. Man, you gotta feel sorry for these dudes, man.
has never given an on-camera interview is because he doesn't want to lie
Of
anymore.
course.
What threats may have been made upon such honorable men or their families to possess their reluctant cooperation and later ill feelings towards perpetuating...
Look at that. Man, he landed on the moon, fam. You land on the moon, you can have a face like that. That's a face of a man that's forced to lie. That's a face of a man that is broken, fam. Come on, man, you can't lie like I said, fam. You can't lie body language. You can't. If someone's lying, you can read that shit. You can see in him he's not telling the truth. You can, man. I mean, like, if there was no evidence out there that the mission was fake, even though there's plenty of evidence, this would be sufficient. That picture itself is sufficient, fam. You gotta feel sorry for these dudes, man. They had to lie. The families, their lives, they would have been in danger. Just like Grissom that died, fam. Because he never wanted to do the fake moon mission. He thought it was gonna be real. So read about him, boys. Read about what his wife says, what his son says. That he was killed.
In this still darkened hour in American history. NASA's highest-ranking official, James Webb, resigned without explanation just days before the first Apollo mission.
Why? I wonder why.
When he was on the threshold of achieving the greatest accomplishment of his career.
Why would you retire?
All 3 Apollo 11 astronauts also resigned shortly after their return.
Yeah, I wonder why.
On the 25th anniversary of the event in 1994, Neil Armstrong made a rare public appearance.
Rare?
And held
I mean, like Shanks coming in one piece rare.
Brief cryptic remarks before the next generation of taxpayers as they toured the White House.
Today we have with us.
This was cryptic, you know. Mark my words.
Among America's best. To you, we say we have only completed a beginning.
Earth protected layers. What's what he says, man?
Much that is undone. There are great ideas undiscovered. Breakthroughs available to.
He looks like such a good man as well.
Remove one of truth's protective layers.
Protective layers. Wonder what?
He is that layer.
Truth protective layers.
Perhaps someday soon, with the uncovering of this footage and its meaning, the true patriots of America will rise up or come forward and free the citizens and themselves from the sin that so easily entangles.
Truth protective layers. I never said condoms.
To have the gangrene cut off. Even if the government's destruction would come from the truth, then it is not worthy to stand, and its betterment would inevitably follow. All of us are mortal.
I gotta go, dudes. But I'm telling you, man, yo, this shit's fake, man. Yo, fam, we never went from after 1972 until now, fam. Their body language clearly proves that. Flipping evident, that video clearly proves it. There's only 2 people on the chat, fam. Flipping astronauts, man. Apollo 11 dudes. And back at Earth, fam. But obviously there was a 3rd one in the chat that says talk because, fam, the Neil Armstrong wasn't talking. I mean, the one window with the Earth on the background. How can the video be on the window when your arm's coming through? Unless the window's flipping open in outer space, fam, and your arm's gone past it. It's fake. That video was not meant to be shown. The flipping NASA spokesman saying that, yo, fam, we have never left. We can't go through Earth's, the Van Allen belt. We can't do it. The technology which we had that made us go past it is destroyed. Man, who believes that? If someone goes to you, fam, like technology from the Nokia brick phone, look at the technology we got now with iPhone, it went further. Then fat ass TVs we had before, HDMI now, fam, 4K, 8K is coming out, fam. Technology is always advanced. How are you telling me this, other than that? I mean, space travel has never advanced. It's horseshit. Yo, dude, man, I can't stop talking about moon. I hate talking about it, fam, because if flipping. I know it's so fake, but people can't see it. Yo, dudes, I love you guys, fam. Okay, tomorrow, man, Usama ranking boys, man. You know what I mean? I'll try to get it out once it airs, man. I got a bunch, you know. Missus gonna be thinking of fucking. She gonna send my ass to the moon at this rate. Yo, dudes, I love you guys, man. Honestly, but like I said, man, it's the same thing about talking about religion, fam. Yo, it gets heated and it's ridiculous, man. Like, it probably show like a side of me which I don't like showing in a sense because I believe it's horseshit, and when I see people justifying it's real, I hate it, fam. But I love you guys. Primer, Cancer, Slow, Isa, take care, man. You know what I mean? I don't know, Iba, I'll try to, fam. I gotta bounce, you know. Yo, I love you guys. I gotta go, man. Shouldn't be thinking moon missions over me. I love you guys.